Oh, I moved here 19 years ago, retired here from Southern California. And when I first came here, there was no gardens in the yard whatsoever. And so I had a bunch of iris for one thing, and no place to put a veggie garden. So I connected with Carlene Kraft, who's on the corner of 19th and Goldenstein, and started helping her in her garden. She gave me some space for my veggie garden. She gave me some space for my irises. And we became very, very close friends for years.
So Don, what all do you grow in your vegetable garden?
Like I said, pretty much everything that grows here in Montana, I grow. I have zucchini, beans, and peas, carrots, radishes, all the cabbage family, lettuce, kale, strawberries. I have a raspberry patch. I grew up a farmer in New York, pretty much slave labor. And I always loved gardening, even though my dad was surprised I would continue it after all the years of complaining about always being in the garden. But I just love the garden.
So you've gardened most of your life?
I've gardened for close to 70 years. When I moved from New York City as a youngster out to the farm in New York, I just continue to garden everywhere. That's a big beef tomato. I have both tomatoes in my garden and in my greenhouse. Turns out the ones in the garden actually do better as far as production is concerned of tomatoes. Not necessarily all getting as ripe, but certainly do better out here.
What are your favorite varieties? You mentioned big beef. Is that one of them?
Actually, I have a lot of favorite varieties. I grow about 35 varieties of tomatoes. I have about almost 60 tomato plants between my greenhouse and out here in the garden. we make a lot of tomato sauce, tomato soup, salsa, and my neighbors love me too.
I bet.
Well, I needed to compost with all his gardens, and I got a friend of mine who's a carpenter, because I'm not, to help me build the bins. They're actually all 5 feet by 5 feet by 6 feet tall. All the boards are removable. Even the inside boards are removable. I have a bad back, so it's much easier for me to shovel things in from one bin to the next with all those removable boards. And I made him 5 feet wide, so I don't have to get in there and turn them over with a fork or spade or anything. I actually take my Manus tiller in there.
Oh.
And as I put layers in, I just layer, and every time I do it, I take my Manus tiller and till things up so I get it all mixed up really well.
So what materials do you have in these compost piles?
It starts with composted horse manure from a friend of mine he saves me the oldest stuff every year, so it's a year old when it goes in my bins. And then I put grass in, if I'm not spraying at all. I also put all the material from my gardens in, because I have a real heavy-duty shredder, and I shred everything. And you can see from the last bin, I actually keep a tarp over that, because that's where all the refuge from the garden goes, and I let that dry, and I keep it dry, actually, not wet, so that it shreds easier. And then it goes into the other bins where I can put moisture to it and really compost it much faster.
Well, Don, this is a pretty nice greenhouse you have here. Tell us about it.
It's 9 by 12. I had 4 people, friends of mine, Don Mathery and Jim Craig, and I forget who else, but took us most of a day to put this together. And I have 2 different sprinkler systems, one for overhead spraying for starting my plants, especially my petunias, because I do a lot of potted petunias and different kinds of annuals. And then I also have a drip system for my tomatoes and my peppers. Like I said earlier, the tomatoes don't do as well in here, at least the larger tomatoes. But I keep a lot of my cherry tomatoes in here just because it's convenient to the house. And I have to keep a fence around the door when I want it'll be a little cooler during the summer to keep the deer out, because they've actually come in here and eaten
Oh my gosh.
my pepper plants right to the ground. So I keep this little fence in front of the door to allow for that. And I have louvers, keep it a little cooler. And it still gets warm though. It still gets very, very warm. Early in the season, that's when these sprayers come on. For starting my plants, I actually have racks on all 3 tiers. So I can start on my plants, both veggies and flowers. And then when I'm done with that, I put my tomatoes in here and take the racks out. So it works really very, very well.
So Don, you're famous for your iris. How did this all start?
Way back when, essentially 70 years ago, I took care of my mother's iris when we moved from New York City to a farm in western New York along Lake Erie. And I fell in love with iris then. It's just something I loved, along with the rest of my gardening. But my passion was for iris, not till later years. But then many years after that, after going to school, I spent a lot of money getting irises going in New York. And then I moved irises from New York to Arizona, and moved irises again to California. I even had them in Virginia for a short while during that time. And then when I moved to California, I just started building iris beds. And I made one trip actually up from Southern California to Montana, and the only thing under my canopy in my truck was irises, just bags and bags and bags of iris. I just love iris. I call it my passion. It's just been a good thing for me. And I have about 500 varieties of iris. And I lost some the last 2 years when we had all this crazy weather in February. And then since then, just this last weekend, I planted 70 new varieties. So I'm probably well over 500 now.
So you grow iris for the joy of growing them, and the benefits, the monetary benefits go to charities.
Yes, I don't keep any part of the money I raise. It all goes to charities. It's just my way of giving back. It's my passion. I have a very green thumb, and I just love being able to raise some money for a lot of charities.